Okay.
So I went to watch the new Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny,
Okay.
the 5th Indiana Jones film with Harrison Ford, who's 84, I think 84 years old.
Yeah, he's fucking
He's
old.
mid-80s, right?
Old as shit.
He's old as shit, right? And
Before you get into it,
Yeah.
just want to confirm, the last indie film was that Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull.
and that was 2008.
It was fucking ages ago. I remember
Ages
going
ago,
to see
yeah,
that,
yeah, and he was old then. I remember like the discourse then was like, yeah, this guy's fucking old.
Yeah,
Like, this is-
yeah.
And now he's even older, right? And I'm a massive like, I fucking love Indiana Jones. That
Indie
shit
fan.
was my childhood. Temple of Doom. People hate on it. I think it's underrated. I think it's a banging film. So like, I grew up on these films, and you know what? Like the trailers, like wowed me. I was like, this actually could be sick. And they got what's it called? James Mangold, who's like a really, really great director. He directed Ford v Ferrari. He directed Logan, 3:10 to Yuma. Like, if you're not going to get Steven Spielberg, he's your guy, right?
Okay.
So the excitement levels for Indiana Jones were high, right? So then Lucasfilm decided we're going to preview this a month early at the Cannes Film Festival, right? And usually what this does, like in the movie industry, you like preview films at the festivals, it generates that early buzz, and you say like, oh, this got like a 10-minute standing ovation. It sort of creates the early buzz, and then when the film actually launches for everyone else, like everyone goes to watch it, right? So they preview it at Cannes, right? Reviews come out. It's like 55% on Rotten Tomatoes. Like people were not enjoying it. People were like, it's bad, the action's not good. And then like suddenly all this hype for this film just deflated like a balloon.
You know what? Give
just
me a
out.
sec.
I think
because-
it's gone up since. There's been more reviews since it's properly launched, but like
No, but let's get one thing straight,
Go on.
because you talk about Rotten Tomatoes and say the people didn't. Rotten Tomatoes is for critics.
yeah, it's for critics. Yeah, yeah. So it's only
I
the
wouldn't say
critics who
that's
saw it.
reflective of the people.
No, but as in like, when those early reviews came out,
Oh, okay, fine.
the excitement levels for this film just dropped, right?
Okay, fine.
And this film cost $300 million to make. Right, this film was expensive
That's a
as
crazy
fuck.
budget.
Bearing in mind the original ones, a lot of it was practical. It wasn't that expensive. It was like a cheap follow up to Star Wars. Once Star Wars had released, they're like, oh, let's do something similar and pulpy. And this came out, right, and it opened to $60 million in the weekend, right. To give you context, Spider-Verse was double that, right? And like the last Indiana Jones film was double that, right? So like this is absolutely flopped. It's not going to break even. It might be one of the biggest flops of the year. So now I was like, obviously all this buzz, my excitement, I lowered my expectations going in, and my sort of general consensus of this film is, I think Indy 5, it's okay, but it's not great, and it's nowhere near as good as it should have been. So like the film starts off, and it's a flashback sequence, right, to end of World War II, and you've got a young Indiana Jones, right, and he's been captured by Nazis. It's a very sort of classic indie situation he's in. They take him, he's got this bag on his head, and then they pull it off, right, and you see a de-aged Harrison Ford, right. But bearing in mind, this is one of the first shots of your film, dude. His face looked so rubbery. Mate, this guy, he looked like it was so
Really?
bad. Like, I feel like deepfakes are so good now that I don't know why they use deepfakes and not they use de-aging and not deepfake. And like, they take his thing, and you're like, the sequence itself is insane. It's like 20 minutes. It's like this high-speed chase on a train, and it's like really exciting, and it's like old school Indiana Jones. But like every time it cut to a close-up of Harrison Ford's face, it just looked so weird. And then the most off-putting part, they didn't change his voice. So you've got old man, gravelly, Harrison Ford, you know, you've got his old like voice with his young face, and it was just like off-putting. And like, it was such mixed emotions, because on one hand I'm like, wow, this is like a really great sequence, I'm loving this, I'm into this. And then it would cut, and you just see his like weird rubbery face like a video game character, and it would just suck me right out the film. So like, it started off with that, and I was like, okay, do you know what, I can go with it. And then the film goes on, and I think the main problem with this film is, do you know Phoebe Waller-Bridge?
No.
So she played Fleabag. You might recognise it, but she wrote and starred in Fleabag, which is a big hit BBC show, really, really good. And she basically plays Indiana Jones's goddaughter, who's this kind of like scoundrel. She's like, you can't really trust her, and like, she was just so miscast. And I didn't buy her as like an action hero. I didn't really buy, like, she wasn't very likable. And like, most of the film, they're just like bickering this whole time, and you're just like, oh, it was just, and that was a big dynamic of the whole film, and it was just, she just got really, really irritating towards the end. But I think the main problem of this is like, he's so old, he obviously can't do any of the stunts and stuff, but there's ways of working around that. Like, the biggest crime of this film Have you seen the Indiana Jones films, by the way? Have you seen any of them?
Yeah, I've seen. Yeah.
So there was one, the Temple of Doom.
Yeah.
You've got a character called Short Round, who's the little Asian kid, right?
Okay.
Played by Ke Huy Quan, and we talked about him because he was in Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he had like a real dry spell in his career. Then he won an Oscar, right?
Mm.
The biggest missed opportunity is not getting him back to play an older Short Round, right? Have him team up. He can do some of the more action-heavy set pieces. Team him up with Harrison Ford, and that could have been that would have made billions, man. It would have been such a good premise, and they really missed out on doing that. And instead, they just get Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who's just playing her Fleabag character, and is just really unlikable and really annoying. And like, I don't know, like the film was okay, and you could sense it tried to sort of capture that Indiana Jones magic, but it just felt a little bit flat for me. And like the ending is one of the most I think it's got one of the most anticlimactic third acts I've ever seen. It just ends. Like I want you to see it so we could I can rant to you. Like I don't want to obviously get into spoilers and stuff, but I just think like, yeah, it's just not. And also, sorry, one final rant I've got to say about this, right? So 2015, The Force Awakens comes out, right? It's similar to Dial of Destiny. It's the first Star Wars film that had come out in 10 years, right?
Yeah.
Harrison Ford comes back, right? And he plays Han Solo. Han Solo has divorced from his wife, right? And he's basically lost his son, right? And he's sort of like a little bit of a shell of his former self, right? What happens when I start watching Indiana Jones, right? Harrison Ford comes up. He's grumpy. He's an alcoholic. He's divorced from his wife, and he's lost his son, right? You've just done exactly the same thing for another character that Harrison Ford's playing. It's like fucking. People don't want to see a miserable old version of a former 80s action hero. Like Tom Cruise proved that, like with Top Gun Maverick, you can have the character still be the same character that they were in the 80s. You don't have to make them like a deconstructed, miserable versions of what they used to be before. Yeah. And like people don't want to see that, and I think that's why it's flopped.
Is it one where he like reluctantly like got back into?
Yeah, it's the classic like yeah.
There's no need for that.
Yeah,
it could just be that like he's getting on with his life, he's happy. And he gets sucked in.
And he's happy to be.
Yeah.
So the film starts, right? And you've got Indiana Jones, and he's drinking whiskey, and he's like drunk, he's alcoholic. There's a party going on next door. He grabs his baseball, he's in his underwear, and he's this old 8-year-old man, and he's banging on the door, be like, keep the noise down. It's like, dude, the biggest hurdle of this film is that Indiana Jones is old, right? Why are you trying to make him more miserable and more old than he could be? Like, he could have been this. I just think they've like. And I feel like I'm shitting on this film. There were some like really fun set pieces, and it was like cool to like see him back. And do you know what? Like, for a guy in his mid-80s, he's looking all right, right? He's looking all right. But I just think some of the narrative choices that they made kind of made this film just feel not as fun and just felt a little bit flat. Yeah.
But do you feel like maybe you feel so strongly about this film being not so great? Because is that because? Or it's in the context of watching what you were expecting, maybe.
I was never expecting it to be like as good as the original three. It's not going to be. If he's in his mid-80s, there's obviously certain, but like there's a different approach that they could have made with it. And I just think the decisions they made, like he's a damsel in distress for like the whole third act. He's like caught, and like other people are doing all the action and stuff. And it's like I just think you can still be old, but like proactive in your own film. And I just feel like. They seem to just have made him a little bit more of a secondary character, which is a real shame. But yeah,
that is a shame.
But yeah, Indiana Jones. Let us know what you thought in the comments.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah.